on? Yeah, do people hear me okay?
Let's see.
Anybody? Can you hear me? Bueller? Bueller?
No one's responding yet. Yes, we have a yes.
Yes? You can hear me? Okay. Welcome. Hello. Here we are in beautiful sunny Burlington. It's going to be a hot one today, so we're getting this done in the morning. It's already hot though. And so we thought we'd start outside because there's a little bit of excitement outside. So first of all, thanks for joining us. If you like, just let us know in the comments where you're coming from, so that we know roughly where in the world you're tuning in from. Andrea is, of course, you heard her. She's manning the camera and doing her wonderful support role that she always does with VTW. Still lots of limb wood here. So if you're a turner or somebody who wants to play with logs, by all means, let me know. You can come by and take as much as you want, because otherwise it's just going to stay here. So let's get rid of it. Okay, let's go look at the real wood though. This is what. So watch out. There's we have a big mulberry tree, and we have a maple tree that's losing keys, mulberries on the ground, and walnuts on the ground. So just watch out. So this is the hand tool only shop. Okay, no power up here, but the view's nice, and it's rustic. But more importantly, what I wanted to show you is this is all the wood that actually got sawn. So we've got it all stickered. It's all resting above on the ground, and then also some tin on the top just to prevent it from getting the rain down on it or pooling water. But ultimately, you want it wide open so that the air can get all the way around. So we got some live edge stuff. Don't worry, I'm not going to start doing live edge stuff. It was easier to just leave it that way, and then I can cut the wane off when I want. And we got some shorts over there. Most of it is 10/4 and 9/4 and 5/4. It's a little bit wider because with elm you tend to lose a little bit due to cupping and stuff, because it's a really funny wood that way. This is the stuff that I hope works out to be the best. These are the cleanest boards. These were from the main trunk, and so it's just hanging out with lots of mulberries on top here. Our next door neighbor says that mulberries are actually really good, and she remembers when she was a young girl in Hungary that they used to do a lot of stuff with mulberries. So I tasted some yesterday. They don't really taste like much, but whatever. Anyway, come on, let's go inside. Are you coming? All right. It's a little bit more reasonable in here. It's hot and humid outside, but it's lovely in here. So welcome back. The last time we did this, I was really only in here for what, a few months, eh? Andrea?
Oh, I haven't been talking.
I know.
Yes, we moved in August and we did an October tour.
Right. So it was really just, I had to get the shop up and running as quick as possible so that I could continue teaching and continue doing all the stuff that I do. So that meant I kind of just got things going, and we did the bulk of it, the electrical and all that other stuff. If you have any questions about the electrical or anything, just put it in the comments. We'll take care of that. I'm not going to go over it in detail, because if you want, you can see in the first video I talk all about, but there's 100 amps in here, lots of power, and so we're good to go.
Why don't we take a quick moment now that we got inside? Most people have said where they're from.
Okay.
So again, local places here in Ontario.
Yeah.
We've got Texas. We've got Pat joining us from New York.
Pat!
We've got, who else have I missed? I got to be able to put the computer down. Montreal. But yeah, so people are definitely saying where they're from. We've got currently 37 people joining us.
Oh my goodness, that's 30 more than I thought we were going to get. Wow, you guys You guys missed church for this, huh? Okay.
And what was I just going to say? Yeah, they can write their questions, comments, anything in the chat.
Yeah, and be friendly, be nice. Don't argue amongst yourselves. I know it's the internet, and sometimes it's hard not to do that, but be nice to people, please.
Can we take a moment for me to put the computer down?
Yeah, put the computer down.
Yeah.
Here, I'll hold this.
Yeah.
So this is Andrea putting the computer down.
I just want to make sure I was missing a few. Barry, Whitby, Kentucky, awesome.
All the way from Barry?
Yeah.
Holy cannoli, that's Northern Ontario. Okay, so a couple of things. One of the biggest things that I worked on throughout the time here was storage. So if you look back in the first video, there was a bunch of this sort of melamine sort of storage that was already in here. The last owner left it. And so I used it begrudgingly. And I think if you go back to that other video, you'll see me, you'll see me not liking it very much. And so I've removed a lot of that. So in this corner here, there's remnants of it. There's this one case up here that is the old style. And Pat, there's your sticker, New York Steak Edition. That's like where you are right now. Andrea's got the camera off on an angle there, and hopefully
is it a good angle?
Yeah, that's great. If we can hold that straight, that would be fantastic. And then I had this old pine sort of cabinet, whatever you want to call it. And it doesn't really fit our decor, and we're never going to use it in the house. So I thought this is a perfect place for hand power tools. I don't like sustainers. I have some Festool stuff. I like sustainers if you have to travel with it. I don't like it in the shop. So what I've done is I've got the bare tools up on the wall here. And then of course I've got some other stuff as well. And that just makes it easy to grab. If stuff is easy to grab, you'll grab it. If it's tucked away, hidden in a box somewhere, you're going to hesitate to grab it. Okay, it's just like sharpening. If you make it simple and you make it easy, you will sharpen all the time. So basically what I've done is I've got all of the stuff here underneath the MFT here. You can see the cases are there, right? And that's of course just to access all the accessories and all that other stuff. But they live under there. That's wasted space anyway, so it's no big deal. And then I have a single cord that is the higher gauge cord that I use on all the tools, and then that way I just plug that in and everything's ready to go. Okay. A change of drill press. I had a vintage drill press, but there was a bunch of work that was going to need to get done. And when it comes to old machines, there's this sort of triangle that you have to deal with. And so at each point of the triangle is either money, time, and knowledge. And if you have all of those, then restoring a machine is great. But if you've got money and knowledge but no time, then it gets a little bit dicey. And if you're missing any one of the factors, it gets dicey. So I decided I'm going to sell it. And I went with, I've always had good luck with Rikon tools, so I just keep buying them. This is a benchtop one, of course. But the nice thing about this is that I can still get plenty of depth underneath the quill here, but then I also have storage underneath. Okay, these IKEA kitchen stands that they sell them, they're like $70 Canadian. They're solid wood, they bolt together nicely, and you can modify them, and you'll see them all over the shop here as we carry on. Anybody got questions? Before you leave this section, we would like a close-up and a closer view of the old tool chest here. Right, okay, so this is, so I've always been intrigued with the Arnicus tool chest. This is not a tool chest that I built. This is a tool chest, so the gentleman that built this immigrated to Canada in the 1800s, sometime probably mid to late, and he built this chest. He worked for the Grand Trunk Railroad, so I also have his immigrant's chest where he brought all of his tools over in. So I have all of his stuff that I've inherited through a person that I know. Now, interestingly enough, there's a little calendar sticker here that says December 1893. Okay, and it's still stuck there, which is kind of cool. In here are all of the sort of tools that I either don't use every day at the bench or that are special. So you can see here a couple of bad axe panel saws. I don't use panel saws every day, but when I do, that's where they live. Okay, and then if Andrea wants to get a little closer here, you can see I've got a couple more. I've got a whole bunch of planes. I keep building planes, and then I don't know what to do with them. And then there's another layer underneath here. More planes, more saws. I may have a bit of a problem. And then there's a section in the very back here with some more stuff. There's even a cool little sort of hidden compartment underneath here where you can hide stuff. I should have put something fun in there, but I didn't. But anyway, so yeah, so this is the real deal. It works really well. I did a little bit of restoration to it. The drawers were starting to kind of crack a little bit and fall apart. So I did a little bit of restoration work, but I left the paint. I don't know how long it's been painted this color of white. I don't know what kind of paint it is. If it's old paint, then it could be lead, and I don't want to be messing around with that. So I'm just going to leave it like that, and life is good.
Awesome.
Any other questions about the chest, or?
Yeah, so someone agrees that you all have a problem, not just you. Everyone's got a problem.
Right. Yeah.
But when was the last time you bought those IKEA stands? Someone says here when they went looking after your last video, there were none to be found.
Oh, okay. Well, I was on their website just the other day because I knew I was going to be talking about them. And now they have them for sale. Now, whether or not they have them in stock is another thing. And of course, with all of this COVID excitement, all kinds of weird things are out of stock. Remember when toilet paper was a hot commodity? Now it could be that they don't have them. But they've had that brand of stand for years. And I first learned about those from my friend Linda Manzer, who uses them on all of her little small kind of benchtop tools, and they're brilliant because again, they're $70 Canadian and they're solid wood, so they're fantastic.
Brian was able to get 6 in the last month, so
okay.
Maybe it's just availability at different stores.
Yeah, it could be just a local thing that your particular store is out of stock. But yeah, check it out. They're still very much a hot item, there. So
okay. And could you put the chest on an elevated base and casters for easier access?
Yes, and I thought about doing that. I thought about actually raising it high enough that I could get storage underneath it as well, but I don't know what that would look like. Part of me was thinking that I could do like a low sort of set chest of drawers, and then put the chest on that. And then have like more drawers, but longer drawers. It'd be great for some Japanese saws and things like that. But yeah, I worked out of this chest solely for about 1.5 years because I loved the Anarchist Tool Chest book. I love the idea of it, but I wasn't convinced that I was going to enjoy working out of one. And so, like Chris demonstrates, you have one hand for the chest and then one hand to reach in and grab stuff. It's fine. In this particular shop, I decided to go a different route because the way it's set up, I didn't really have a spot for the chest, or I didn't feel I had a spot for the chest. So it stays over here. It also makes a fantastic step stool because just above it is the split unit. And one of the things they warn you if you put one of these in a shop is that you have to keep the filters clean, okay? Behind that entire panel in the front and then wrapped up onto the top are cleanable filters. And so I gotta get up there. I get up there about once a month and vacuum them out and make sure that they're good to go, because otherwise that's the real Achilles heel to these units is dust. They don't usually recommend them in a shop. But the fella that I have an HVAC guy that lives across the street, and he said, you keep the filters clean, you're good. It's like driving an old diesel truck. Clean fuel, clean air, you're good. Okay? So that works out really well for me to get up there as opposed to standing on the MFT, which I'm not sure would handle it. Any other questions?
Just some nice comments. I don't know. Do you want me to like mention the comments or just
if there's any questions?
Okay.
So again, MFT is still here resting on its original legs. I've been threatening to build a base for this where basically I fold up the legs, because the one thing the MFT is not great for is stability. Okay, you can get the stabilizing bars. I looked at them in the store. They're not all that great. So I think the better thing to do is to put it on something actually solid. Haven't done that yet, but I will. Part of me wants to build a set of big honking trestles, kind of like Mark Harrell's Workbench, if you've ever had a chance to check that thing out. He's got these things sitting, I think they're on 8x8s or 10x10s. If I built a couple of those and put the MFT on there, I bet you it wouldn't move. So I just thought of that. That's a really good idea. Make a note, Andrea.
I was reading the comments and not listening.
Okay.
But that's anyway.
But yes, I will make a note.
A few people are just asking to comment on the photo, wondering who's in the photo. I'm not sure which one, so maybe refer to both.
All right. So this is Papa Teslin. This is my dad, Livio Teslin. He's no longer with us corporally, but he's always here. And he's always watching what's going on. My dad, in his older years, was a very good supervisor. And so he would give all kinds of great advice. He was an immigrant from Italy, and he traveled here in his early 20s and then took up a trade. He was a painter, and he worked hard his entire life right to the moment of his death. So that's a good inspiration for me. And then below here, this is a marquetry piece that was done by a good buddy of mine, Scott, who may be tuning in. I think he's the guy from Barrie, because like, who else is from Barrie?
I think someone. I don't think it's Scott, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, then no offense to the other guy from Barrie. But anyway, Scott was learning how to do marquetry, and so this is actually a slightly disturbing photo of my friend Stephen Durgarvidian, and he did it in marquetry. And so it is gorgeous, and he gave it to me as a gift, and it's one of my most cherished items, because not only did he do a pretty darn good job with the marquetry.
Scott is here.
Right?
Yeah, he's here.
Like, the marquetry is surprisingly good, although the subject is a little questionable, but for a first-time attempt, I think that's pretty darn awesome. So, so I like having that up here in the shop, looking at me. Oh, it's gonna fall down. I don't know how I had that rigged up. We'll put it there.
Before we move on, I want to make sure I get to these. So we have someone joining us from Mexico, and they're wondering, might be an odd question, but how about construction details like flooring and etc.? Is it something that you are concerned for a shop in Canada?
Right. Yeah. So this building. So yes. You know, in Canada, it's important because we have big swings in temperature between hot and cold. Right now, it's going to be close to 40 degrees Celsius outside. In the wintertime, it can swing the other way and be minus 30 degrees Celsius. And so yeah, everything's insulated. Everything is, and then of course this does heat and cooling. Right now it's a concrete slab, which I'm not happy with. Whoever did this concrete slab should never ever be able to do concrete slabs because it's super wavy. There are areas where you can like do a kick flick off of with a skateboard. It's really bad. And so my goal is to, one of my students in BC has just finished leveling his shop with a concrete material, and so I really want to do that. But the thought of moving all of this out so that I could do that is really daunting. But maybe I'll do it once I trip over the humps a few more times. I'll probably be willing to look at doing it. But yeah, there are definitely certain things that you have to consider in especially this far north in North America, where there's a lot of just swings in temperature and humidity.
Okay, and you mentioned AC and heat. Do you have humidity control as well?
Yes, yeah, and it's sitting over there. We'll get to that in a moment, but yes, I do. This unit does pull out a fair amount of humidity, but it can't keep up the way you would like it. So just like in a home, a lot of times, at least we do anyway, we run a dehumidifier down in the basement. It's the same thing in here. The dehumidifier runs, and I keep it at around 50% is what I aim for. In the summer, in the winter time, I didn't do it last year, but I will be doing it this next season. I'm going to be running a humidifier in here because it got as low as 25%, which is too low for a shop. Things start to shrink and crack and do all kinds of funny things. So I'm going to aim to have it around 50% or 45 throughout the whole year. Yeah.
Okay. We do have a question if a 10-inch jointer is big enough, but we're going to get to
that.
Yeah,
right? We'll get to the jointer.
Yeah.
We've received messages ahead of time of this video asking if I can talk about that jointer, and I would definitely do that for sure. Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Good. Okay. So then over here, the lathe area got a little bit of a facelift. The cabinet from my book is getting utilized to hold some of the ancillary stuff for that. I hung up the tools here. I'm not a big turner. I can sort of turn. You don't want to see it. You don't want to watch it happen. It's like a dog's breakfast, but it gets done and it works really well. And so also here on the floor, I don't know if Andrea can.
I'm just mindful. It's looking a little blurry to me. I just hope that the video didn't just get blurry for everyone.
Oh, it could just be the internet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll let you finish what you were doing, and then there's a question.
So down here as well, I don't have room for a big honkin' router table. So what I did is I modified a Lee Valley drill press table, and I built a base for it, put a lift in it, and now I can put this up onto the MFT, and now I have a full-size router. There's a 3 1/4 Bosch router in there, and then I can do most of the stuff. I also have a small one for trim rotors as well.
Okay. It was a bit blurry to people, but it looks, again, cleared up, so it might just happen.
Okay.
Very nice cabinet. Can we get a close-up of the wall cabinet?
Oh, sure.
And are you planning on using the lathe?
Yeah, like I do. I mean, I've got 6 squazillion pounds of turning material over in front of the shop, so I would love to turn some things. I'd like to try to do some bowls, and I'd like to try to do some mallets and, just those fun things, but it just, everything else seems to get in the way. So for good reason, I don't get paid to turn. So I have to be careful what I dedicate time to do. But if I have to do a pull or a foot or something like that, I have the skills to be able to do that, but that's about it. So if you want to come in a little closer on the cabinet here, so this is a bird's eye maple that has some staining in it. This is a veneered project. So this is in the second book. And so a walnut cabinet with a single shelf here, and then I've misplaced the modular shelf here, so I have to go and find that. But basically, it's just all of my turning stuff. I've got a scroll chuck, and so I turn primarily with the scroll chuck just because I've got like the drive center that fits in it and all that other stuff. So that lives on there. I don't even know if it can come off, to be honest with you. But yeah, that's the cabinet there.
Okay.
Another new addition is a chop saw. Normally not a fan of chop saws in woodworking shops, just because I don't think that they're accurate enough to do a final cut. However, I've been proven wrong with this thing. So this is the Bosch that has the knuckle. I don't know if Andrea can see the knuckle.
I don't know what a knuckle is.
Well, it's right here. See, there's a knuckle back. There's a knuckle there and a knuckle there.
Your arm's in the way.
My arm's in the way. You see it?
Yes.
Okay. And that makes it pretty darn accurate, which surprised me. Also, the dust collection on this is pretty darn good. And Bosch seems to use the same hose ends as Festool, so my Festool dust collector, or pardon me, extractor, pulls the dust out of it really, really well. Usually these things are notoriously brutal for dust everywhere. Yeah?
Yeah.
The other thing I did here was I had these cases from when I used to teach live because I could put all my tools in them. But now that I'm doing primarily online teaching, I use an awful lot of hardware, digital video hardware. And so I have HDMI cables and audio cables and microphones and
let's see.
And all of that kind of stuff right in here. I just started using a Blackmagic switcher, which allows me to put 4 cameras on, and then I can switch between the cameras. And then of course, you know, microphone gear, and I've got everything labeled so I know where it all is, so that when I'm setting up for a class, I've got everything kind of organized. And then there's some bigger cables and stuff in here. So this is really the first shop that I've been in long enough, and I know I'm going to be in this shop for long enough that I can really start to focus on the storage and not just have everything sort of all willy-nilly.
We're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is also new to me. So I went from not really owning a table saw for a lot of years, and then I had that small Inca one. And then my good friend Steve was upgrading his saw. He was getting a saw stop, and so he asked me if I wanted this Delta contractor, and I was like, yeah, sure. So I've been using it mainly for crosscut work. I don't do a lot of ripping work. That's a throwback from the Rosewood days. It's always safer to rip on a bandsaw than it is to rip solid wood on a table saw. So really, you know, a good crosscut blade lives in here most of the time, and then this Jessam miter works really, really well for doing some pretty precise crosscut work. So Andrea's smirking at something.
I haven't said anything yet. We have quite a few people who have written beaver, and they're like putting question marks and stuff. So I don't know if you just want to get to that after you're done with this part.
Okay, so obviously somebody has done it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Early on too, but as people keep joining and seeing, we get beaver with question marks.
So if you come a little bit closer over here, I wrote on the board, sticker giveaway, first person to type beaver in the chat wins. And then there's of course this little beaver here, very Canadian, wearing a Mountie hat. So that was just some fun stuff that Andrea came up with, and that's a lot of fun. So
I'll scroll back up to the top of the comments later and see who said it first.
Yeah, so whoever said it first, you're getting a little sticker pack. We'll contact you for an address so that we can send it to you. Okay. So then one of the other things that I did was, anyway, so if I could just sort of finish up with the table saw here.
Yes.
So it still takes up an awful lot of room, and I really only use it for crosscuts. But where it really excels, because I used to do the majority of the crosscut work on the MFT, the problem with the MFT is that when you're using really small pieces, it's very difficult to get the track onto a small piece and cut it. And so I've been using this for like precision crosscuts, and whenever I work with any sort of plywood products. So it's getting used. I wasn't sure how much I was going to use it, but I'm actually using it surprisingly enough. So it's going to stay. Dust collector, we changed up a little bit. I originally, because the runs on this are so short, right, because all the machines are grouped, the longest run is 10 feet. And so what I didn't have blast gates on the inlets, but I decided to do a little bit of an experiment, and I added them, and it makes a dramatic difference. I thought for sure a 2 horsepower machine with a maximum run of 10 could have 3 of these open, and it would work fine. But in fact, it does work a lot better when you open and close them. So if you're looking at getting these, do yourself a favor and get the self-cleaning ones, okay? They're only a few bucks more, but they really, if you get one of these things plugged up, it's a bit of a nuisance. So, so I find that that is working really well. I'm happy with this dust collector. It works really well. It really sucks. You know, cleaning out the bottom is really easy. It's just a couple of tabs it opens up, and then I can wheel out the cart to outside and dump it. I've got a pile. You may have seen it when we were out back. There's a pile of sawdust back there that we can use for mulch or whatever. Okay, not a whole lot different over here. Thickness sander, awesomest thing in the world, working with inlay stuff or doing thin work. One of these is fantastic, and of course the old rigid belt oscillator works really, really well. And again, another of these IKEA stands that it lives on. So both of these machines, the dust pickup here on the table saw has a quick release on it, so that I can plug it in quickly to here or into the other machine, and I get good dust pickup. Okay, because anytime you do anything, if you try to run one of these sanders without dust, it's not pretty. And it also packs up the belt really quick, and you end up tearing through belts really quick.
A couple questions.
Yep.
How noisy is it? I'm assuming that's the dust collector. That question, like sometimes the comments are a little delayed.
Right, yeah. It's not super loud.
Yeah, does it produce a lot of noise being right there in your workshop?
Yeah, but it's not much louder than the thickness planer running or the table saw running. So it's not, I remember a while ago, I got one of those apps to just kind of check decibel ratings. And like little vacuum, well, not the Festool, but the little vacuum, the little Raycon vacuum that I've got is the loudest one. But this isn't all that loud.
Can we get it turned on?
Well, yeah, I don't know how you can, yeah.
Try talking?
So it runs, I don't find it super loud. I also have 14 years in the artillery where I've lost some hearing, so it doesn't always work all that well for me. But it runs, I think it runs quiet. I don't think it's any louder than any of my individual machines. And I wear ear protection anyway.
I was going to say, something I notice when I see you in here is that the dust collector is usually on when a machine is on. And when the machine's on, you normally have your ear protectors.
Right.
So you're already sort of not hearing it at full volume.
Right.
So. Yeah,
so it's not a big deal. So yeah, I wear either a set of muffs or I've got the, what are those called?
The ones that go in the ear.
And then you can play music through them. You know, those ones. When I'm doing a long milling session, then it makes sense to have some music, or else I start the conversation that happens in my head isn't always conducive to working. ISO tunes, that's it.
Yep, someone just said ISO tunes.
ISO tunes, excellent, thank you.
All right.
When you get in your 40s, you start to lose your nouns, and so I'm a big time part of that. So actually, if we come back on this side here.
Give me a second to turn the laptop so I can keep seeing things.
Watch out for the cord.
Yep. 1 second, folks.
All right. So in the back here, we have some more of these cabinets that I don't really like, but I mounted them high up. And so this is for stuff that doesn't, pardon me, doesn't get a lot of use, but is still necessary in the shop. All my manuals and stuff are up there, and some sanding supplies and router bits and things like that I don't use very often. There's also my Panther router here. It lives again on one of these IKEA stands, which are perfect. And so I'm going to do some work to the base of this just to make it a little bit nicer. Right now I still store things in the original boxes that it came in, but for the most part, I'm going to end up doing this a little bit differently, just to make it a little nicer. Storage, hardware storage has been sort of coming along. As I get frustrated with certain aspects of it, I add some more kind of concerted storage. This chest is really good. All my nails in here. And then of course I've got the old school label maker that's a lot of fun. And basically it allows me to kind of store things in a way that I can easily grab them and know where they are. There's still a bucket down there. That Festool sustainer is full of hardware that I haven't seen in years, and it needs to get organized. But I probably end up just buying more hardware and using it, even though I probably got it in that bucket somewhere. In the back here, behind my sharpening station, is the dehumidifier. All right, it's not running right now because we didn't want the extra noise in the video. I find that thing annoyingly loud, actually, and so I find whenever I'm teaching or if I'm doing anything where I need concentration, I shut that off. So.
Okay, so a few questions now that I'm back here. Oh dear, people, I'm trying. Okay, there we go. Yep. Okay. So how do you maneuver a 4x8 ply sheet in such a tight shop?
I don't. Yeah, I don't. If I have to do 4x8, then what I do is I put it on a set of sawhorses outside the shop and I cut it down with a track saw and then I bring it in here. Yeah, no, I have no, or depending on the wood store that I buy it from, like if I go to the local place here, Exotic, they'll cut down the sheet for me. You know, and 9 times out of 10, it's not like a super big charge. And so it just makes it a lot more easy. I have no ambitions to slug around 3/4 inch 4x8 sheets of anything. And I only work with plywood, you know, on certain occasions. So usually making jigs or sort of things like that. So it's not, the last time I worked with a lot of plywood was with the new Workbench. And we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail as well.
Question about the unicorn. How do you keep it so clean?
Well, what you do is you take it off here and you kind of do this a little bit, and then you put it back up. Yeah, this was a treasured gift from my pal Steve, because everybody needs a bandsaw unicorn to make sure that everything, it sprinkles its little magic dust down on the blade so that it makes a nice cut with no bow when you're cutting veneer. It works well.
And what type of humidifier are you using?
Oh dear. The one that was on sale at Canadian Tire. This one's a Honeywell. It was $100 off at Canadian Tire. So when Canadian Tire puts stuff on for $100 off, you buy it, whether you need it or not.
Yeah. And then maybe just more of a comment than a question, but something we could address is you don't seem to be a minimalist anymore.
No, I never was. See, that's where a lot of people kind of mislabel me a little bit. I wrote a book called The Minimalist Woodworker and projects from The Minimalist Woodworker. And the whole point of that book was I got tired of people telling me that if you couldn't have a machine or if you couldn't have power tools or if you didn't have space, that you couldn't woodwork. And I knew that that wasn't true because I learned skills with various hand tools to do things by hand. And so I just wanted to remove that barrier for people. All of the teaching that I do is based around that. Is removing barriers so that people can woodwork. If all you've got is a tiny little space, enough for a workbench and a tool chest, you can build a lot of stuff. I mean, you're not working with 4x8 sheets and you're not making queen size or king size beds, but you can definitely woodwork. So I always had what I call apprentices. These are the machines that basically do the grunt work for me. But for the most part, I still do a good blend of hand and power tools because I don't use hand tools because they're romantic. I use them because they're the best option, in my opinion. So no, I'm not a minimalist. I just wrote a book that has that in the title. Okay, so a fun project that I did recently on my sharpening stand, my Tormek stand here, is that this is actually one of those IKEA cabinets that you've seen other things on. But what I did was I built drawers into them. And so basically I got some drawer slides from KJP. These ones I did undermount ones on here and here. And it's nice because Tormek, when you have the kits, they sell them in, they put them in these containers for you. So it just makes it nice and easy to kind of store stuff. And then I've got another one here on the bottom that's kind of like the turning stuff, which I don't do a whole lot of, but it works really well. And then of course the soft close makes your life so nice when you're not slamming drawers. I also put plywood, you can see here, on the sides. So I just skinned it with 1/8" plywood all the way around. And so of course that really made it nice and solid. And then of course a nice hand forged hook from Terry at Old Soldier Tool Works to hold my fancy little cloth there. So it works out really well. And then here, this is an experimental bench right now. Again, not everybody's got room for a big honking workbench. So this is made with 2x12s because at the time when I built it, a 2x12 didn't require a mortgage. But now this isn't a very inexpensive bench. This is a pretty expensive bench actually. And so the idea is that can you just get a couple of 2x12s and make a workbench that would work really well? And so the answer is yes, although you do need to do some strengthening, which I'm going to do on the back to prevent a little bit of racking that I'm getting. But the nice thing about this is that there's storage here. You've got a spot, you've got holes along the front that you can use work holding with, so you can cut dovetails along here if you want. Most boards that you work with are not 12 inches wide, so this works really well as a planing bench. And for smaller projects, I think this is a good option. So I'm going to develop it a little bit more and get a little bit more sort of R&D done to it, and then maybe it'll end up as a course or a set of plans or something, I don't know.
Before moving on, can you go back and chat a bit about Tormek? I don't know if you could put you on the spot and do like a little example, something.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people kind of have mixed feelings about Tormek, and I think mostly it's because they've never tried it, or people don't really understand how it works. And so I only use the Tormek. I don't have stones, I don't have jigs anymore. I still teach people how to use those things, but in my own sharpening, all of my sharpening gets done on, I have a variety of these wheels. I have a Japanese stone and a diamond stone that allows me to do work on the side. And then the leather honing wheel, basically every edge gets done with this. Every back, the burr gets removed on here. And that's a part I think most people kind of freak out about, is that when you take the back and you're going to, actually here, let me grab a chisel and I'll just show you what I mean. This is the part where people really freak out on the Tormek, because in the industry, we've drilled it into people that the back needs to be flat, the back needs to be flat. And so what I do is basically, well, I can actually do it. So I can touch up this chisel by just coming over here. There's enough honing compound on here. And all I do is I just touch the heel and then bring this down so that there, now it's touching the whole bevel. And I just polish that up. Again, like I'm using honing compound. It doesn't remove a ton of material. It's just polishing. And then this is the part where people freak out. I'm going to run this on the top here, and then I'm going to bring it so that that edge is close to top dead center, and you hear it. And then there you go, the burr is off. But everybody panics because now they think, oh, you've ruined the back of the chisel, or you've ruined the back of the plane blade. And the reality is that this thing's not removing enough material to worry about it. And so So that little bit of tune-up is all I do, basically, in order to get chisels back up and running or hand plane blades back up and running. The key is not to let your tools get so dull that they require work on a grindstone. Okay, the old saying is grind once, polish forever. Okay, so my aim is that as soon as this chisel starts to feel a little dull, I just come over, hit it on the leather wheel, take any burr off, and then go back to work. So anyway, we recently became a retailer for them because I like them so much, and I don't think that, well, quite frankly, I don't think people that sell them do them much justice. And so I wanted to be able to provide a level of customer service to people that if they want to get into these machines, that they do. And so they're expensive as a single item. They're, you know, a T8 is $1,000 bucks. But when you start to compare how much money you've spent on various stones and jigs, you're up into the $800 range anyway. So anyhow, the point of the video here is not to be a sales pitch, but it's a system that I use synonymous, sorry, not synonymously, but I use this for every tool, whether it's a scissor, plane blade, chisels, axes, my turning tools. I use it for everything, and there's no need to have a set of stones or a strop or anything else. Everything gets done on this machine. So you'll be seeing more of that content coming down the pipe.
So question about that, does the Tormek and the various wheels work well enough to replace a traditional bench grinder?
So my answer is going to be yes, but you have to understand that a bench grinder, if you're accustomed to the speed at which a bench grinder rips material off, then you'll be slightly disappointed. What you don't get with a Tormek is the risk of burning the steel, right? Which a lot of high-speed grinders, if you're not careful, you can introduce some problems where you're going to be drawing the temper out of the steel. So I don't use a full-speed grinder. I don't have a full-speed grinder anymore. I do have a belt grinder, but that's mainly for shaping metal parts. If I'm working with brass or aluminum or whatever, that's what that's for. All of my sharpening gets done on here, right? You can dress this stone to be anywhere between 250 grit and 1200 grit, which doesn't sound impressive when you consider like stones. 1200 grit stone isn't very coarse, but in the case of this system, it is. It's very fine. And so you can either remove a lot of material with this, or you can do sort of nice clean cuts that you could go right. When you go to the lathe, you can go off the grinder and then you can just touch it on the wheel. And then now, like my skew on the lathe is got two beautiful mirror bevels, which, I mean, I think a lot of the catches I used to get with the skew had more to do with sharpening than technique. Although I still occasionally bury a tip and have some excitement, but that just keeps you young.
Okay, so we have some people helping each other out. Someone's asking if the 2x thick material moving back to the bench is thick enough for dog hole hold fast. And then we have a yes, someone here, Kevin, has 2 on the top. They work great. Too thick is problematic for me. So I'm just wondering if you can just speak to that.
Yeah, I don't often go thicker than like 2 inches on a bench top. I'm not into the big honking heavy work tops because I just don't think they're necessary, and it adds an element of complication to everything. Where to source the material, how to dress the material, how to glue up the material. It's just a constant nightmare that you're dealing with. So in this case here, like I've got these holdfasts here, which are my personal favorite from Old Soldier Tool Works. They're too long to use in this bench because there's storage underneath. That's the trade-off. This is very similar to the shaker style bench. If you look in the Workbench book by, I believe it was Scott Landis, the shaker, the problem is that you don't have a lot of room because there's cabinetry underneath. But this workbench here is a similar thickness. and I find it works really, really well. So you could forgo this shelf if you wanted, right? And then just build so that you have the room to get this all the way down, right? But yeah, you can use any sort of 3/4 inch accessory.
Okay. And then we're jumping back to the Tormek.
Back to the Tormek.
If you don't use stones, can you flatten the chisel on the Tormek?
Yep. Yep. So what you do is you use, so first of all, you use the diamond wheel, okay, because these stones can wear away. And so there's no way to true the side of a stone. But essentially what you end up doing is you end up using this guide to press up the tool up against it and then push this into the side. And then you can grind away. So yeah, so you can flatten chisels on there.
Okay, that's it for questions right now.
Okay. So then this is kind of the same. I redid it a little bit just because I found the original version wasn't wide enough. And I had also made the mistake of having the shelf go into the window casing here, which made closing these blinds a little bit difficult. And so sometimes when I'm teaching, the sun sets over there, and so it comes streaming in, and that's not good for teaching. And I'm on an angle again. I'm
just sorry. This is we need a third person, I guess, because I'm reading, there was a comment back before. They want to see a detail of your chiseled tool rack by the window. So that's what I was looking for, and then the camera goes. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. By pulling this shelf out and then putting a lip back here, it makes it a little easier so that stuff doesn't go flying. And then I added this little cord system here that allows me to pull the blind. And then I have control instead of trying to get under here, because of course, if you stick your hand under here and start playing around, you've got a couple of vein openers here that can definitely cause you some problems. So that worked out well.
So just sort of, if you can, walk us through it. So like some of it is magnetic, some of it isn't.
Yeah. So in this case here, there's spots for the tools that I use all the time. These are cut in place so that the chisels stay upright and I can see right away which chisel I'm grabbing. In the case of the Japanese saws, magnets, okay, because these things weigh nothing, so that they hang fairly nicely. Anything that's got some heft to it, like this, like my carcass saw here, what I do is I put a screw in through a cork, and then that protects the handle.
I feel like that's a cool tip. That's something you love talking about. Is that a common thing, or is that a you thing?
No, I think that's pretty common.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, it's important then to make sure that you get to the LCBO at least once a week to get stuff with corks in it, so that you can make sure you have enough cork on hand. You don't want to be left empty, no cork. The files, same thing. They're on there with magnets, which works out really well. I didn't put everything sort of in a 5S situation, where it's like all got its own spot. So I wanted some open space in order to just put stuff, and then little containers to hold various things. The squares, I found it's nice to bury those into the oh my goodness. Yeah, we need a camera person. So this works out nicely because then more of this is on the shelf and then you don't have to worry about it. But yeah, and then I just wanted, and then stuff on the sides. Again, it's stuff and grab all the time. And so it's nice to have things sort of, quick and easy to grab.
I also think at the last shop tour, your bench was in front of the window.
Right, yeah, it may have been.
So why did you change it?
Yeah, I changed it because I wanted the light to come in off the side of the bench as opposed to like straight into me. And then also from a very practical standpoint, when I'm teaching, the camera is there. and I'm here at the workbench, and so it's a very easy way to kind of to do things. So.
Okay. A few questions. A good comment. For our camera person, we could just strap a GoPro on Bruno. We could try that.
Right. Yeah, because a puppy Labrador wouldn't be jarring or.
And yes, Bruno is actually currently in the house. The question is, where's Bruno?
Yeah. Bruno's been having some health issues.
He's on bed rest.
He's on bed rest right now. So it's nothing serious. It's just it's just something that we need to keep him calm. And so he's having a bit of a rest right now, but he'll make more appearances as he's a puppy right now, and so like he just eats everything and chews everything, and it's like if there's a screw on the floor, you're like, oh, what's that? And he'll put it in his mouth, and then if he swallows a screw, then it's a couple $1,000 to get it out. So we just got to be mindful of him in here sometimes. But as he grows older, it'll be good.
Yeah. Where are we? Where do you recommend for our articulated task lights?
Oh.
Or what kind of lamps you're using? So I suppose maybe me running into the lamp was a good prompt for people to ask about lighting.
Yeah.
So what do you recommend for task lights? What kind do you use?
So everybody tries to buy like super expensive ones. I go the other direction. I buy the cheapest ones I can find. And again, that's an IKEA product. So these are $14. This is a different head unit. This is like this is just an LED in here with a built-in shade, and it gives a pretty good amount of light, which I like. It seems to go. The cone is a little bit wider, but I have one of these at. If you kind of take a quick look around, there's one at the drill press. There's one at the MFT. There's one at the lathe, and that also gets used at the chop saw. There's one over at the sander, and there's one on the bandsaw, and all of those are IKEA ones. And again, they're $14. And as they, you get a couple of years out of them, and then one part will break, and then another part will break, and so then I take them apart, and I have a little plastic tote in the shelf over there that has a bunch of spare parts, and so then I can start repairing them. And then every couple of years, I buy one or two, and of course, they do different colors every year, so you get this like. You get yellows and you get blues, but I found it interesting that the blue is almost exactly Raycon blue, and the green is almost exactly Festool green, which I thought was wild. I don't know. I'd love to think that there's a woodworker at IKEA that's like, oh, we'll make it this color. So when they come out with woodpecker red, then I know it's going to be. I know what's going on.
But yeah, I was going to say that's actually something you like doing. Every time you need a new light, you're like, what color should I get for this? Like, it's it adds something to the shop.
Yeah, you can get the boring white ones or the boring black ones, but why not have a little bit of color pops here and there? And that makes life a little bit more exciting. We also changed the lights on the ceiling as well. They originally were these sort of all-in-one LED lights. It basically was an LED strip mounted on the inside of a light, and the problem is you can't change the bulbs. So once it kind of craps out on you, you just throw it away, which to me is a little bit ridiculous. But anyway, so I replaced them with just like El Cheapo, the old bedroom lights. I don't know if you can see in the actual because the lights are on.
Yeah, they're just sort of these glowing. Yeah,
they're just glass tops with two, whatever the 100 watt equivalent in LED is, and it throws tons of light. It's a little bit more even, and the old lights were warm lights, and I prefer daylight lights because I've got this massive set of windows where daylight is pouring in. I didn't want to have like 3,000 Kelvin lights in here with 6,000 coming in the window or 5,000 coming in the window, because then it makes videoing difficult, it makes photography difficult, it makes a lot, and it bugs me. So I prefer not to do that. Andrea didn't turn her sound off of her phone, so we'll just
sorry.
close that.
Well, I had my phone out for a reason. There is the question regarding that machine that you haven't talked about yet.
Oh, yeah.
Before you get there. So that's why my phone was out.
Okay.
Now I need it and you moved it.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Do you want me just to ask the question?
Yeah.
All right. Where are we here? Does the fact that it's not a big 220-volt machine hinder it in any way when it comes to jointing boards that you might use for a dining table? So any thoughts you have on this machine would be great.
I've not found it underpowered at all. It's got the helical cutters, which it's got the individual cutters in a helical pattern. And so I find that it works really well. I've done full width work with this machine, and I've not had it kind of bog down or cause any problems. So yeah, I am pleasantly surprised by this machine. You know, you can get a lot of different versions of this, and you know, everybody I talk to, some of the bigger names, like I know I've heard tons of people complain about the hammer version of this machine, but you pay a heck of a lot more for that. So I'm overall, I'm really happy with it. People say, you know, worry about whether or not it takes too long to convert from one to the other. I'm not in some sort of time trial in here, so it takes me about a minute to convert it over and then back again. So, and if anything, it forces me to plan my work so that I'm not, you know, at one point in the build going, oh no, I forgot to do this, and then have to go and, you know, set everything up again. So, yeah.
Okay, so the fact that it's not 220 volts doesn't hinder its performance in any way?
Not to my mind. I mean, if you want to be able to take like 1/4-inch cuts or something with your thickness planer or with your joiner, maybe then it would. But I tend to remove as little material as I can. And if I have a 5/4 board, you know, and I need 3/4 out of it, then sometimes if it's flat enough, sometimes I'll resaw a piece off, and then I can always use that for something else. I can use it as a veneer, or I can use, so I don't like putting, you know, half a board up the chute into the dust collector because it just seems a little wasteful to me. So, you know, normally I'm not taking off, you know, more than, you know, 0.3 mil maybe at a time, because I don't want to remove too much material in the flattening process.
And then the question, the 10-inch jointer, is it big enough?
It's perfect for 10-inch boards.
Okay.
I don't know. I've not run into a situation yet where I need bigger. You know, like some people have a 12 and, you know, they make 16s, and it's like, well, you can, you know what I mean? Jack Forsberg's got I think it's a 24 inch joiner. You know, but he actually is one of the few people on the planet that would actually use that, just by the nature of the work that he does. For a furniture maker, I don't know, 10 inches, that's, you know, you consider most woodworkers have a 6-inch, and some woodworkers bump up to the 8-inch, because of course, every time you go up in size, it gets more and more expensive. So to have a 10-inch machine to me is like a real luxury, and I couldn't imagine saying, oh, I want bigger than that, especially in this shop. And I mean, I don't do 8-foot long anything, right? If you're, you know, I always cross-cut my boards to approximate length first, and then I rip them to approximate length or approximate width first on the bandsaw before I do anything on the jointer and the planer, because the smaller the pieces are, the less effect things like cup and twist have on those boards, and so you end up getting a higher yield by doing it that way.
So for furniture making, whether it's dining room table, bed frame, whatever, that would be a fine machine to use.
Yeah, oh yeah.
In combination with the bandsaw.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, full disclosure, last time I built a dining table, I had KJP Select make the top. I had them laminated because, again, you know, 7-foot long 2-inch thick, 10, 12-inch wide walnut. Like that's a lot to wield around in a small shop. So to my mind, it was well worth the price, because they do it all with their fancy CNC machines. And then it came to me sanded to 120 grit, perfectly flat, perfectly jointed, perfectly put together. I even was able to pick the boards, and then they put them together for me. And they have cabinet makers that work there, so they, you're not going to get some jarring joint or anything like that. So I think there's certain limitations at a small shop, and if you don't have a big honking joiner, then you start working with 8/4, material 7 feet long and stuff. It's a little daunting.
Okay. Now we got a couple questions. We kind of hopped over the bandsaw. Other than the unicorn, we didn't really talk much about it.
Yeah.
So question is, do you have enough room to run an 8-foot board in the bandsaw?
No.
On the bandsaw?
No, I don't. 8 feet is like nobody, builders use 8 feet, right? I don't use 8 feet. So, I mean, I can't remember the last time I made something that was 8 feet long. So like I was saying, I cut it first, cross cut, extra, kind of 20, 30 mil on either side, so that I have lots of room, and then I can do this. If I get into a situation where I need to do 8 feet, then all I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this way. I'm going to open up the door, and then I'll have room to pass stuff through. So
if you were to use an 8-foot board, it is doable.
Oh, for sure.
Even though you don't do it often.
Yeah, I never do it, because 8 feet is like, we get locked into the 8-foot rule because plywood comes in 4x8, and a lot of material comes in 8 foot. And I can't remember the last time I did anything that was 8 feet long. Okay. So it just, in this shop, it's not practical.
And what is your favorite type of bandsaw blade?
I buy the ones from R&D Bandsaw. You can order them direct, or some people carry them. I know Ethan at Stockroom Supply carries some of R&D Bandsaw stuff. I get the 1/2-inch 3 TPI is my favorite blade.
Why?
Because it's a good balance of being able to resaw and be able to do curves. With that size blade, I think you can do a 2.5-inch radius, which is a pretty tight radius. And I have no problems resawing with that 1/2-inch blade. This machine, I think, can handle a 3/4-inch blade, but I've never felt the need. I did a 5/8 one time just to see what it was like, but it really, for the cost, the 1/2-inch 3 TPI, to my mind, is the good all-arounder blade.
Okay. Thank you. So moving back to, as people are seeing things in the shop, they have questions.
Yeah, sure.
Those red drawers on that smaller bench,
yeah,
are they easy to find?
No, they don't exist anymore.
Oh.
Yeah, they used to be made by Veritas, and Veritas stopped making them. So send a strongly worded email. Yeah, these things are awesome. They were pressed metal, and then powder coated, and then all you did was you create the cabinet that has kerfs in the side that receive the sides here, and it works really well. It's a horrible, like, I've had these since I first started being a cabinet maker, and in fact, when I went to Rosewood, I needed something to put my tools in, so I bought a bunch of those shelves and I built that little case. So that is pre-Rosewood. And yeah, now you can't get them. So it's a real bummer.
Do you know of anything similar?
There's different versions of it, but really, if you think about it, if you just make, the nice thing about these is that they're thin, right? So you can get quite a bit of stuff in them. But really, you could make a wooden box and then on the top put a aluminum runner or something on there. That would kind of interface with that in the same way, right? Yeah, I mean, these are sweet and they work well. They just don't exist.
Okay. And then speaking of going back to kind of, I'm just moving the laptop so it's not on your bench and I don't want it to fall. Thank you. Back to sort of the sizing. I think you had mentioned this a little bit before regarding the plywood. You do some of your sizing outdoors before you bring it in the shop.
Yep.
Is that right? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Another question before moving on. Does the dust collection or lack thereof on the contractor style table saw drive you crazy?
No, not really. A large amount of the cavity underneath there has been plexiglass was installed. Steve did that. So plexiglass was installed, and then he put like a gasket around it. So the only area that's open is the back. And I find that the dust collection, when you run it on that machine, it draws the dust down. It doesn't necessarily get it out, but it draws it down so you don't have it like blowing up into your face and stuff like that. So I was a little bit worried about that and thought I was going to have to create some interesting back for it where you can allow the swing for the trunnion and stuff, but it hasn't been a problem. So I haven't really worried about it. I just leave it the way it is. And every once in a while, I take the dust hose out and I suck it all out, because I just did that this morning, actually, because of course I wanted it looking nice in here for you guys. Yeah, and it miraculously does not send dust flying everywhere. It's actually, as far as dust collection goes on table saws, it works remarkably well. I thought I might also maybe have to look at getting some sort of an overhead situation. Dave Bedrosian did a really cool overhead one that he basically mounted to a ceiling, and then he could drop it straight down onto his blade, and then has all kinds of features to it. But it hasn't been a problem, so I haven't really worried about it.
Okay, and I think this is a good sort of segue. You mentioned about making it look nice for the folks today.
Yeah.
This person's asking, when they do work in the shop, every flat surface tends to get covered in anything and everything. But you seem to have a minimal amount of flat surfaces. And I kind of think that's funny, because I notice when things gather.
Yeah.
Is it intentional? Do you want to not have horizontal surfaces?
Yeah. So, listen, this is a bit of a, I may have misled you a little bit.
This is the stage. This is like a showing, a open house.
This is like a home showing. Yeah, this is there's no dog toys everywhere and Lego all over the floor. Horizontal surfaces are crap stackers. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I am no different. I have to move stuff off of my table saw in order to get. But here's the thing, though. I think the more organized you can get, the less that actually happens. So if there is a spot for something, so like right now, like I've got an insert in the table saw, but I've also got the original one that I use for if I'm doing any mitering or something. This does not have a place to live right now, and so it goes on a horizontal surface. I have a small stop that I can clip onto the fence here to use this as a length stop, right? It doesn't have anywhere to live, so it goes on top of the table saw. This giant, excessively large remote to turn the dust collector on, it doesn't have a place to live. And I thought, well, maybe I can just put it on the dust collector, but in which case then I might as well just reach over and touch the button instead of having a remote. And then having this thing, would be a little bit crazy. So that sits there. So I find the more organized you get, right? Like this little, my buddy Scott makes these they're designed for beer, but I turn this into a glue caddy. Because now, instead of having glue bottles all over the place and the little applicators and stuff all over the place, it's all in one spot. So when I'm going to do a glue up, I just grab it and it's ready to go. And he does some fun wood burning stuff on there as well.
Naughty Pine Woodworking.
Naughty Pine
He's
Woodworking.
Currently here in the chat, or you can find him on Instagram or Facebook.
Anyway, he does really cool little things. He's also the one who did the marquetry of Stephen, which is shows you the breadth of his incredibleness. But yeah, so I find that if you can get organized, something has its spot. Now the only thing you have to do is put it back into its spot, right? And then sometimes that's a problem too. Sometimes I end up with an empty chisel rack with all my chisels on the bench because you know what I mean, I don't put them back. But I try to be fastidious about moving things back to where they belong, and then that helps a little bit. And then it's just the usual barrage of chunks of wood and pieces and things like that.
This was also a similar topic. You did a blog for Fine Woodworking about clean at the end or clean as you go.
Right.
And so that's sort of, it's like, if you clean as you go,
yeah,
hopefully your horizontal surfaces stay.
Because I get really frustrated personally if I have to start moving stuff around just to get to a machine or to just get to a work surface. And so I find that really frustrating. So, you know, I try at the end of a session in here to do just a quick cleanup, put things away. You know, if something needs to be sharpened, I like to do it at the end of the day, and then that way I come back in and the tools are sharp, as opposed to having dull tools in storage and then you pull them up and then you got to spend time sharpening. But anyway, it's just the way I like to work.
Okay. Someone's saying, you mean you did staging for the shop tour? Yeah, we totally did.
Yeah.
You'll see, I find like, I'll come in here and I'll take a picture of your bench when it's like after you've worked on it.
Yeah.
And we sometimes go back and forth about like, you should post that. No, but it looks messy. And it's like, but that's the reality.
Yeah.
That is what your bench usually looks like, and not like this.
Yeah, this is pretty clean.
Yeah. So one more question going back to the joiner planer.
Yep.
Does the smaller size of the in-feed and out-feed tables have any noticeable effect on accuracy?
No.
No? Just
no, I've not noticed any problems.
Okay.
It gets it flat.
Okay.
Now that's big flat, right? That's not like NASA engineer flat, but it's plenty flat for what I do. Yeah.
And okay, how is the dust collection on the machine?
It's okay. It's okay. You get a little bit that kind of spills out on the bottom here. Basically, this is the chute, and so this is collecting at the blade right now. And then when you take this part off and rotate this up, then it's covering over top as it sucks it out. So it's not perfect, but it's not any worse or better than like a separate unit. Some jointers I find like they get jammed up at the bottom and stuff like that. And for the longest time, I didn't have dust collection. I had like an Inca jointer, and I didn't have dust collection really. I just let it drop out because the shavings are so heavy. But yeah, this works well enough. Yeah.
And any stability issues due to the weight
of the machine?
Yeah.
No. In fact, in the instructions, it's pretty cool. Once you get this base assembled, what they do is they recommend only hand tightening these bolts. And then what you do is you put it where it's going to live, and then you just kind of give it a kick. You give the legs a kick outward, and then whatever your floor is doing, because they're hand tight, they will adjust to give you the most stable surface, and then you just go around and tighten them all up. So I'd never seen that in an instruction manual before. I thought that was great, but that's how they designed it so that it can do that.
As you kick your mocks and vise on the floor. Okay, we're caught up on questions.
All right.
I feel like we should pay attention to this workbench.
Okay, so so this is the last thing we'll talk about, and then we'll answer any last questions, and then we'll, because it's getting close to lunchtime and I'm getting hungry. So this is basically the same bench as what's in the book, except I made it out of Baltic birch plywood. And so I wanted to do this as an experiment to see how sturdy and how stable it would be. And it is remarkably stable. This thing it weighs a ton, and you've got huge legs and stretchers in here. The nice thing about doing this type of build is that you look in the front here, you can see all you do is you make some of the laminations on this longer and some of the laminations here on the leg shorter, and then you end up with integral joinery, which works out really well. So as well, instead of, there is a dado in here, but the dado is created by putting blocking on one side and blocking on the other side, and then that creates the joint. And then it's got the same, I like having the gap here, right? Because a lot of times I'll use like one of these small F clamps, right? And that'll drop right in there and lock into place. So I like that. And then from the end, you can even get a bigger, where are all my clamps? On the end, you can get a bigger clamp in, right? And then if you want, you can take, of course, you can pop a head off and then kind of go that route, or put them into a dog hole, or that sort of thing. But a lot of times I just work from the edge. And then the top is a little bit different in the sense that I edge glued the majority of the top, but then I added one piece of 3/4 on face. And so basically that is so that when this starts to get beat up, all I have to do is unscrew this top bit and put a new one down, and then figure out some cunning plan to chase these holes. So I'll probably have to do it, I'll have to reverse it and then drill through from the other side. But all of this comes apart. This top can come off of the base. So whenever, if ever, I have to replace this top, then it's really easy to do. But yeah, I never worked on a plywood bench before, and I'm really liking it. You know, it's starting to get beat up and discolored and marked and all that other stuff, which is good. You know, the first few things that hit it or bump it or whatever cause you some problems. But I did get a little bit of tear out in some spots on the holes, on the dog holes here, but I'm over it now. It's not a big deal. And the nice thing is that it's flat, and it's going to stay flat, which can't always be said for solid wood benches.
And you went back and forth about a vise on it, is that?
Yeah. So I have the original vise that I had on pretty much every workbench I've ever made. I've got this big record front vise. I thought about putting it in here, but the problem with vices is, well, they can be expensive and get you into trouble. But woodworking vices, once you mount one to your bench in a certain spot, that's where it lives. And if you, sometimes I would love to have a front vise here, but typically for a right-handed workbench, it's over here. And so as soon as you mount a vise, then you need to use it in that position. So what I do is a lot of the things I use a vise for, I use my Moxon for. Cutting dovetails, that sort of thing. Let's just get this off the bench.
Horizontal surface.
Yeah, thank goodness for horizontal surfaces. See if I didn't have a table saw. But yeah, the Moxon, I can clamp wherever I want, put it up onto the bench, whether I want to work on the front kind of corner here, or if I want to work here, okay? All I do is I just hit it with I just put a hold fast in. That hole needs a reaming. Okay. And the nice thing about Nick's stuff is that you can just hit it with your hand, but just give it a little extra cushion there. And then I would put another one in here once I ream this hole out. And then now you can work anywhere you want, basically, on the bench. And then this one, I made a small standoff here that basically is the same height as this, so that when you're marking your tails onto your pins, then it lays it nice and flat, and you've got support. You don't have to worry about working on this tiny little surface. But so yeah, so I haven't put the vise on. Whenever I have to do any sort of edge jointing, I find that all I do is I use the wood screw, right? Clamp that down to the bench, put the piece in here, and I can either have it in the front and push into it, or I can have it in the back and pull a plane into it, and it works really well.
Can we have a quick technical? Can we plug your laptop in, please?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we don't want to lose power, do we?
Yep. And then we'll get back to the questions. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So a few things here. All right. I think I also need to adjust my camera because we're close now. Would you consider offering a plywood bench, maybe with pre-cut material from KJP as a class this fall?
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh, another shot.
Yeah, I could talk to them about that. Yeah, that would be interesting, because if it was pre-cut, and then you could either pick it up or you can have it shipped. Like, a lot of my students actually have gotten a lot of material from KJP because they're so good at cutting stuff up and sending it to them. Yeah, I could take a look at that. The other one I thought about too was I've got this. This is a hand plane body. We're running the last class is on making a wooden body plane, and I thought it could be interesting, like if I provided a kit of the components. And then basically I run a one-day class on the assembly, like a 2-hour class on how to do the assembly, and then you've got a wooden hand plane. So that could be kind of the same idea. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So where else am I? And we kind of talked about it. How do you manage without a tail vise, or does the use of hold fast or hand screws suffice? Is the Moxon vise a good alternative? You kind of covered that.
Yeah, I haven't had a tail vise in years. Tail vises can be a real nuisance to install. In fact, anytime I get the urge to use a tail vise, I just use one of these quick release Wonder Dogs. That one needs to be reamed as well. Oh my goodness. Finish is the culprit. So these work well because then you can put this in line and then lock it into place, and it works really well. It's a lot easier than doing a tail vise situation. Yeah.
Okay.
All of these need a little bit of love.
You have mentioned Old Soldier Toolworks a few times. Can you tell us a bit more about Nick?
Oh, what do you say about Nick? So Nick, it's called Old Soldier Toolworks because everybody that works there is a veteran. So right away that makes it aces in my book. Nick has done a lot of tools for me. This mallet here, hammers. Here, we'll just turn this into the Nick show. How's that?
I'm gonna try and get the laptop out of this. Everyone can see what I'm seeing.
So Nick has built a lot of stuff for me. I know I'm forgetting stuff. He's got his hold fast. I also use, he's got a planing stock. I think that's it.
No.
Oh, no, draw knife.
We'll get a little close up of the Damascus. Oh, it's not. Can you hold it though? Yeah.
So yeah, so he has a nice forge up in Ottawa. He works on Jack Forsberg's property where Jack does. He's got a huge couple of shops there, and
Watkin Temple.
The Watkin Temple, that's right. And yeah, he's a fantastic metal worker, blacksmith. You know, he, you know, when you see him working, he looks like your typical blacksmith, big fella who's beating the hell out of some hot steel. But you also can have some really interesting conversations about retained martensite in metal and all of these other very sort of specific conversations. He knows metal inside and out at the molecular level, and that's what makes him so good at what he does. So I like buying stuff from people that make stuff. And so for me, being able to hit my chisels with a tool that was made by another craftsperson, I really enjoy that aspect of it. So yeah, he's done a lot of work for me. Some stuff he, you know, tries out with me, like a dog head copper plane adjusting hammer. Right, not something very commonly seen, but I wanted to try it out, so he did that. Also the Damascus dividers. He swears he'll never do Damascus dividers again, but I think if you pay him enough, he will. This is a riff off of a Newfoundland condensed milk opener, condensed milk can opener, but I use it as a birdcage awl, which it works really well. So yeah, I like Nick. I count him as a good friend and fellow vet. So he's it's good to patronize him.
Okay. Where are we? We have someone joining us from England, all the way from Cornwall.
Cornwall, excellent.
And the question, is there a tool shortage in Canada too? Right now, Veritas and Lee Nielsen are really hard to get in the UK.
Yeah, everybody's having trouble.
Supply right now, like
it's not only the individual companies, right? Lee Nielsen I know has decided to kind of reduce the amount of stuff that they're sending outside of North America because they can't keep up with North American orders, let alone with around the world. So unfortunately, you know, they have to make decisions that, you know, based on what they can do. But it's not even that these individual companies are having trouble keeping up. It's the fact that they just can't get materials. I know that, you know, my buddy Mark at Bad Axe, like the problem is like, it's not that they can't crank out saws quick enough, it's that they can't get the materials to make the saws. And so everybody's really kind of hurting with this sort of thing. So I think as we start to see, you know, things start to morph a little bit as the pandemic, you know, gets downgraded eventually to an endemic, and then, you know, sort of just becomes the flu again. You know, I think we're going to start to see things improve as far as materials and, you know, all that other stuff. And maybe a 2x4 won't cost $20. But yeah, everybody's having trouble. Everybody, even the stuff that's coming in from China, like a lot of the machines are made in China and stuff. And like, they can't, it's raw materials. They just can't get it. So I feel you.
That's it for questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if I didn't get to your question, please feel free to type it again. We've got people from Rhode Island, Maple, Ontario, Richmond Hill. Pat was here.
That's
Pasadena. Awesome. I'm going through to see Rockland, Ontario. Australia.
Oh, my goodness. What time is it in Australia?
And I believe it's the Andy J. Kerslake. They said Beaver first.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So I'll be in touch with them.
Awesome. So listen, folks, thanks so much for spending part of your Sunday with me. You know, this shop is, it's the first shop where I really started taking my time to kind of get things organized the way I want and not just sort of slapdash putting things together to make it work. You know, this is the first time I've painted walls and made it sort of like a comfortable space for me. So of course it's a workshop, so there's going to be changes. There are going to be things that are going to be added, subtracted, those sorts of things. But for the most part, I'm really happy with the layout. I'm happy with the tool set that's in here. I don't. I'm probably not going to buy any more tools.
I heard that.
Yeah, no, I would never say that out loud, even though I just did. But yeah, this has become a very very comfortable space for me, a very fun place to work in, and I'm glad that I get to share it with people online. It's fun. People can see glimpses of it and stuff like that. We've had a couple of people who live in the area that have stopped by for a distance visit to either pick something up that they purchased or just to come and say hi. So if you're in the area, let me know. I'm always up for a shop tour and a chin wag.
Come say hi and leave with a log.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, if you like a log, then a chunk of wood, you're more than welcome to have one. But yeah, we're doing a lot of interesting stuff here. Andrea and I have really kind of thrown ourselves into this now, and so we kind of eat, breathe, sleep, this whole VTW thing. So it's definitely a partnership, and it's definitely it's making us happy, and hopefully it's making people like you happy. So is there any
There's two more
questions
before you wrap up. Yep.
Sure.
What finish did you put on your bench?
I use some furniture butter, the walrus whale furniture butter, because it has some wax in it, and so the finish I only want on the bench just to prevent like things like glue from really sticking to it. I'm usually pretty good at getting glue up off the bench before, or using a piece of paper or newsprint or something. But really, the finish on the top of the bench is really just for that sort of thing. So the furniture butter is nice because it's got the wax in it.
Okay, and quick question, what size is the shop?
I always get asked this, and I always kind of stutter because I can't remember, but it's about 440 square feet. So about the size of a 2-car garage. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to measure it right now once we're done, and then I'm going to write it down somewhere.
I think the reason we also get confused is because when we moved in, there was the shop was sized, and then you took the wall down. So that thing in the ceiling.
Yeah, there was another, which I haven't done repaired yet. But yeah, that other side of it wasn't part of the original shop, and so I took the wall down, and then now I can't remember numbers and stuff. So I just got to measure it, and maybe I'll write it on a wall somewhere, and then I'll know that that's the size of the shop. But I remember it's about 440, 450 square feet.
Okay, and then a quick suggestion, could we get a session on converting some of the logs into boxes, start to finish?
Oh, yeah.
Omit the time to dry in real time, so I don't know if we could.
Yeah, well, actually, I fully plan on doing that. As these logs dry out, I've got some kind of set aside that I'm going to do exactly that, where either we'll bandsaw them open or rive them open. But yeah, it's going to take a little bit of time for those to kind of acclimatize. So, but yes, we'll look at doing that, because I think that that's a really cool thing to be able to do, is take essentially what's a piece of firewood and turn it into something beautiful. So, yeah.
And Nick just said hi. He's here.
Hey, Nick.
Old soldier himself.
Yeah. Did you see the Nick show here? Just like everybody wanted to know about Nick. So here we are talking about Nick and his awesome tools.
All right, everyone's just saying thanks and goodbye and wrapping it up. So thanks, everyone.
Cheers, thanks for coming, and keep an eye out on Instagram and Facebook and all that, and on the website for anything fun and exciting happening. So thanks for coming out.